Hello, I'm Dr. Alisha Lola Jones, and I am bringing to you Men Who Sing High, a series featuring Morgan State University countertenors. Next up, we have Thomas Allen. You've heard him on recordings with Ricky Dillard and the Soulful Symphony, but I'm not quite sure if you've heard him sing jazz. We have a performance by him singing the jazz standard Round Midnight, and then we'll talk a little bit about his experience in ministry and on the concert stage as a countertenor. Let's take a listen. Doesn't mean that our love is indeed coming I need you. Let me find you're out of my heart and out of my mind. Let a heart take wings from midnight, from midnight. Let the angels sing to your returning till our hearts are safe and sound. And a midnight comes All right, you guys, you have just seen Thomas Allen in his jazz performance. We've seen him in gospel, we've seen him in concert music, and now it's time to talk about his musical versatility. Hello, Thomas, how are you?
I'm good, Dr. Jones. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited that you're giving us a little bit of your time so we can understand your musical gifts and talents. So
No.
tell me. Okay, so I hear people talk about your sort of vocal classification as falsettist, as countertenor. What is the uniqueness of your sound? How can we talk about your sound appropriately?
Mhm. I would say, it's a good question. I would say the uniqueness of my sound is being able to navigate through the different vocal categories, if you will. And I think to break it down, I would say I personally consider myself a countertenor.
Okay.
Because one, I've studied, formally, and I
What
do
does
the
that
countertenor.
mean? What does that mean? You studied
What does that
formally.
mean? Yeah, well, you have to be open with that because although, I studied at Morgan State, I did my undergrad there in vocal performance years ago, I think 2006. So I'm getting old. But I think if you studied and you're doing the actual repertoire, then you can identify as such.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's unique about me is that there's another layer or extension, if you will, of that I've been able to kind of bridge and cultivate those sounds in the different settings, like you mentioned, the jazz, concert setting, whatever it is. So I think what's unique about my voice is really hearing it as one instrument and not two separate voices, because you did mention, I think you said falsetto, and the falsetto has a place. I typically use the falsetto more so for, I would say, vocal effects, because technically it's not a full supported sound. And from a vocal production standpoint, what's happening is the airflow is really going, I would say, on the edges of the vocal fold. And so it's not a full developed sound. So I love falsetto. I think it's important to know how to tap into that. And there are some people that rely on that 100%. But I think what's unique about my voice is I really consider it one sound. And so I think it's how I'm navigating it in terms of technique.
I like that. And I also like that in your body of work, your corpus, as they say, you demonstrate musical versatility, which for those of us who have been formed in Western European art musics,
Mm-hmm.
um, particularly in schools of music and in conservatories, there's this idea that you have to like focus on the art music. However, what I love about the Morgan State tradition is that you all have this musical versatility across genres. What is musical versatility for you?
Yeah, I would say music versatility is really being able to bring service, vocally to those specific different genres, and being confident with what you're able to bring to it, even if it's outside of what you mentioned, like maybe what your focal point is. I always advocate and always say my foundation is classical. And so although I'm going in and out, I would say that still is that undergirth of how I'm approaching it. But I think from the Morgan State experience, I think because we do so many different genres, we just get accustomed to how do I, again, commit to the service of whatever I'm trying to do in that moment. So if it's a jazz piece, then all of a sudden we're 100% invested in terms of what the composer's intent was, and then we bring our own interpretation of that. And then of course, in the undergraduate curriculum, there's voice teachers and coaches there to kind of help guide you through that process. But I think a lot of us come from such a solid background, I would say, in the church setting. Not to go into something different, but I think having that as the root and being able to just sing different voice parts and lead and sing background. So we already come to the table with being able to wear the different hats. And then when you transition into more educational setting, then it's formalized, but you already come with that spunk and creativity of whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
Church. Tell me about what you learned in the church. Like, what were the skills? I like to call it the academy of the church. What were the skills that one might not necessarily encounter in, the sort of conventional education?
I would say the oral sensibility. It's
Mhm.
really hearing, and understanding what it means to harmonize. The different textures and timbres that we produce to convey a message of whatever we're trying to sing. I think all of that becomes a depository, if you will, of things that you can just pull from and bring it into whatever you're trying to do. It's a remarkable experience. And I think all of my colleagues, we all can speak to it and kind of give reverence that is kind of where it all started, from just an interest level. I mean, there's blues in the church, they may not call it blues, but from, a chordal perspective, there is, and one may even argue it was birthed out of that setting, So I think it's just an overwhelming experience of just sound and timbre and color and rhythm, that's just beautiful. I think it definitely gives us, I would say, a heads up in trying to approach other genres.
Mm-hmm.
Because even before I could even sight read, I felt like I could just sing it just because I heard it, and that comes
Mm-hmm.
from that type of setting, like you said, not conventional, but you may play it and I sing it back. And so I'm so comfortable with it from an all sensibility that now I can do it in a conventional setting in a way that's very relaxed and confident, but it's just because it's a part of who we are.
It's interesting because as I hear your style and approach across the genres, I can tell that you understand the traditions and the way that we might talk of it as performance practice. So
Mm-hmm.
even if it is you debuting with the LA Opera, singing concert music on a major concert stage, or you doing jazz, I can tell musically that, like an instrumentalist, you are familiar with the modes and the chordal qualities that you are improvising on. How do you switch gears in terms of performance practice? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think performance practice, hmm, you definitely have to know, I would say, the footprint of those different practices. Or our practices. You know, when you go into that setting, yeah, you could sing a jazz song and have your own interpretation. But from a purist standpoint, there's some fundamental things that you just have to do or you just have to know. So I always say my perspective is I'm going to always do it the way Thomas Allen will do it, but you had mentioned like modes and just kind of understanding what that musical texture is. It really comes from me having an appreciation for the music or the art or whatever I'm doing in that moment, and then taking that and spinning it in a way that I think works for what I do.
hmm hmm What also encourages me is that you are certainly steeped in the church tradition to the point that you have just released a project with one of the icons of gospel music. How has that been to collaborate with Ricky Dillard?
Oh man, we call him Dr. Dillard. He
Dr.
is
Dillard, yes.
Dr. Dillard, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. I mean, I'm just so blessed that he extended his platform to me. Obviously he has a host of friends and singers that he could call to do the piece we did, which is an arrangement of Let There Be Peace. And especially for what we're dealing with right now in terms of
My
this world
goodness.
crisis and pandemic, it's just a moment to say, instead of panic, we should find a space of peace. But it's been amazing. I mean, he has been very supportive. He's aware of my background. He's always encouraged me to be me. So I'm able to be on his platform, but still bring whatever my experience have been. And I think that to me is the key, because I've worked with a lot of gospel artists over the years, but I think he's the first one, I would say, that really fully embraced what I did vocally and said, listen, you do it as God has given it to you, and let's take it to the road, take it to the world. So I'll always be, in debt for that, because there was a point in my career I was looking to reconnect, because I think once you start off in the church setting or in sacred music, and you pull away, once you do, concert work, oratorials, jazz, you look for that way of how do I reconnect. And so far that has been my way of really reconnecting with my roots. Needs mending. Doesn't mean that our love is indeed. Darling, I need you. Lately I find you're out of my heart, and I'm out of my mind. I let a heart take wings from midnight, let the angels sing to you.